Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by MediaClip, Advertech Printing, and School Photographers of America.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by Peter van Teeseling, the Executive Director of Dscoop. Hi, Peter. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Gary. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, for the folks who aren't aware of what Dscoop is as an organization, can you briefly give us a summary of the types of businesses, either printers, service providers, or vendors who are involved in Dscoop? What makes Dscoop their organization?
Okay, yeah. Well, Dscoop's been around for 18 years and started as a user group of HP Indigo printers together with HP. And in the past 18 years, it's developed to this global movement of printers, suppliers to the printers, and HP into a movement and community that the purpose is to drive the transformation of the industry. So getting everyone to go digital, essentially. And it's sharing best practices, collaborating for their customers, and building alliances to further the cause of digital print.
So you do that through a variety of activities. You've got physical activities, you've got meetings around the world, and you have an online community that is pretty robust. So it's year-round Dscoop.
Correct. Yes. I mean, that's certainly part of the evolution, right? I think in the beginning, it was a once-a-year event, and we would still hear sometimes people say, hey, well, I'll see you at Dscoop next year. But yes, it's now a year-round community. We have an online platform where we publish about 200 articles, stories from our members throughout the year. We have a very active audience on our newsletter, social, and then we still do online and in-person events, and they range from smaller local events to big conferences.
So the local events, I think, are something that I have found intriguing because I've not been to some of these places, but you kind of get an insight into them. Can you talk a little bit about some of those localized events? Because it seems like they're very well attended. And there's a lot of great information sharing that happens there.
Yeah. I mean, we've done local events for the last 7 or 8 years, right? And the goal of that is to bring Dscoop into countries or areas that, for example, language is a barrier in communicating. So think about Latin America, think about across Europe, multiple languages, and clearly Asia has many different languages and cultures as well. And they've been very successful building local communities. So, we have members in about 100 countries right now, and they have always been well attended, but they've always been also driven by our members. So we have local members volunteering their time and energy to help us build programs that attract an audience. I would say the program we're running, for example, in this year, we call them summits. We make them a bit more sub-regional or multi-country. And they are like 2-day programs. They attract anywhere between 80 to 150 people, but they would come from multiple countries. They would, like we did one in Rome in January. We had 100 people flying in from about 20 countries, including the US and India, and then across Europe, and really getting together for 2 days to talk about a theme or a topic that motivates them. In this case, it was around e-commerce and AI. But there's always a combination of education, socializing, like a dinner or a city tour, and a visit to one of our member sites. And that's also something that is, I think, key to that community aspect, is that we have members that have really no issue in opening their doors for others to come and visit and see each other's facilities, walk through the factories, see what they're doing, how they're doing things, and really, discussing the practicalities of running their business.
So the cornerstone event, the flagship, if you will, is your annual global event. This year has a very long name. Can you tell us that name and where and when the event is?
Yeah, I would be more than happy to do so. I mean, it's a bit tying back to what I said earlier, right? So the history of Dscoop being a once-a-year event, and will I see you at Dscoop next year? That led us into a direction some years ago is to define a new brand for our event. And the brand name is Edge. So these big events are called Edge. And then, yes, the next one that's coming up May 7 to 10 in St. Louis, USA is the Edge World Expo St. Louis. And that is, I think, the first time since 2019 that we're back together in its full glory, meaning with a solution showcase, with HP bringing in printing presses that will be running on the showcase floor, partners bringing their equipment, finishing, embellishing, doing lots of cool new stuff, again, live on the show floor. Yeah, that's the flagship event that's happening. Edge would be just fine calling it like that.
So last year you did have an event, and the Dead Pixel Society was there participating with some sessions, and we're happy to say that again we're going to be there with some educational sessions specifically for the photo market. But Dscoop has always had membership among the photo printing segment because I think because of the heritage of the Indigo Press being kind of the cornerstone of the photo printing market. But there's other things, other technologies, other services, substrates that I think photo people will be interested in seeing at something like Dscoop.
Yes, and I think that's almost a bit of a transformation in the industry, right? So printers have been adding services and applications to their portfolio. Think about one example that stands out to me is visiting members around the globe in my tenure with Dscoop, and then walking into a photo site, in sort of January with almost the lights out because the peak season was done, and they wouldn't open again until say Valentine's or something else. And I think those companies have been seeing opportunities and moving into certain commercial applications or others. And vice versa. So it's not necessarily just exclusive photo. And I think that's where you see photo applications coming into commercial or e-commerce, where there's lots of diversification happening. And I think that's the nice thing about Dscoop, where you can actually rub shoulders with others that have either already done it and talk about their experiences, the good and the bad, and others that are planning to do it. And that combination with vendors, suppliers that have, substrates or equipment or software that can help them make those transitions, and then the actual users themselves makes it just a really good environment and very, very safe. I mean, safe in the sense that there's people with the same mindset. They're there to sort of advance their own case, right? Whether that's individual, professional, or as a business. Right. And ultimately that's what drives them and makes it such a social and good environment to talk business, talk professional, and really, people walk away with great ideas, great connections, future collaborations. As I used to say, well, I still say it, it does lead to sort of friendships, partnerships, collaborations, mergers, acquisitions, weddings, so it spans about everything.
Talk a little bit about the Dscoop program format, because unlike some other conferences you may attend to, it's almost an all-inclusive type event. You don't really need to leave the event to go to dinner or something. There's something happening all the time. And it's sort of a mix of business. You have traditional sessions, you'll have keynote speakers, which I'm going to ask you about in a minute, some of those high profile speakers, but also the social events. Dscoop is really built around that sort of building relationship type activity. So can you talk a little bit about some of the individual breakout sessions or tracks that are going to be there that may not necessarily be photo, but would be of interest to anyone?
Yeah, well, as you said, Gary, right? We're trying to build an all-inclusive program. It's almost like an all-inclusive resort. We don't want you to leave, right? We want you to consume everything that's available and provide something for everyone. There's a lot of dynamics, so you're meeting lots of different people. But we see the content as really a driver for conversation. So one is, yes, there are great learnings. A lot of it is peer-to-peer, so people can learn from each other, as I mentioned that before. But we're also seeing that the industry evolve into realms like automation, robotics, but also on the logistics side, software automation, the software part, the automation, the software part of automation. So think about like big data, cybersecurity, those types of things. They're not necessarily focused. Yes, there is content for labels and packaging and commercial printers and publishing and direct mail and page wide and indigo and large format, and photo clearly is an important part of that as well. But there's also a lot of that sort of blended almost type of content. So it's interesting for many different lines of business. I think an added bonus of the one we're doing in St. Louis, this one coming up in May, is it's a global event. So that means we're bringing people together from around the globe, which will add a very different dimension as well, because then you'll have multiple aspects and multiple perspectives on certain topics. And want to try and bring it together as much as we can. And again, these are our starters for conversation for people to then go into these social events and continue that conversation and talk through what have they learned, what are they seeing, and process that further. Again, have them walk away with a very rich sort of backpack full of ideas and contacts.
One of the things I think is valuable about the Dscoop program is not only will you have specific things for your type of business, but also you can see adjacent businesses, maybe that do similar things, but not quite the same way. And you can see how they do it. But also you just have general trending, how to run your business type tracks. Like, there's tracks there on sustainability, hiring, recruiting, and retention, and supply chain issues and things like that. So really, someone could bring not only their leadership, but maybe some of their, managers and that. And I know people bring actual teams of their people to Dscoop.
Correct. Yes. I mean, we see that a lot because what they do, I mean, the challenge usually when you go to an event is there is a lot of content, right? So how much can you as an individual absorb through a single track, but now multiply that by multiple tracks? We have, other than the keynotes, we've got, I think, like 42 breakout sessions that will happen across 2 days. So on a Monday afternoon and a Tuesday afternoon. So there's going to be multiple things happening at the same time. And this is where we see the benefits of members bringing multiple people. So they bring their leadership, but they also bring, for example, the operators, operations managers. And now we're seeing an expansion into, for example, the realm of developers and IT, because it's tying into what's happening in the industry. And trying to cater for the different groups. And an important part is also for them to get together, because you don't often, as business owners, you get to meet at conferences and other events. But when you are into the operation of the company or possibly in sales and marketing, you don't necessarily get to meet your peers almost. And I think that's that environment that we want to try and create, where these different groups, they mix and mingle, but they also can congregate together, like what we're doing with you in the collaboration with the photo track, is bringing the people that feel connected to the photo part of their business, or want to break into that even as newcomers. And again, they can learn from each other, and either you bump into each other or you get introduced to each other in those sessions or in the hallways or in the social events that again happen throughout that entire 2.5 days.
So can you talk about the keynotes? You've announced a couple high profile speakers, and I think these are speakers that are going to be worth watching. I remember last year the Savannah Banana guy was a big hit. And this year, I think you've even gone up a step. Yep. You've eclipsed him.
It would be hard to eclipse, because certainly Jesse Cole, the Savannah Banana guy, I would say we looked at all the ratings in the past 18 years of conference keynotes, and he's number one.
What was amazing about him was he stayed throughout much of the conference. He was around a lot. He didn't just do his speech and then leave. He hung out for a while.
Yes. And I think that's, I mean, he was super engaging, and I love that type of session where there's no slides. There's just a lot of things to learn from. And I mean, he had people standing on their chairs and dancing. He had people dancing on stage. And I think that was a first for Dscoop anyway. He was one of those keynotes that sort of, you don't necessarily yet know, and it's a big surprise, right? So it's almost under promise and over deliver. I think, coming out of the situation where last year we had no equipment, we almost couldn't have the event. You remember this from the days when we were planning, and it became very close to not happening. It happened in the end. We had over 800 people there, and I think now with the security, the conviction we have and the confidence we have that everything is happening as normal, many things are coming back to normal. We still see supply chain
Right.
issues in the industry clearly. So, but we have we know HP is bringing their Indigos to the showcase floor. They'll be running on the showcase floor. We expect a large global audience. We said, okay, how do we put a name out there that we've been asked many times over many years to bring, and how can we make that happen? And I think now the constellation has been perfect for us to then say, okay, we were asked to recruit a big name. We were asked specifically to bring a specific name, and we're delighted that we were able to make it work. And so we're excited to have Irvin Magic Johnson as the keynote on the Monday afternoon to speak with our audience for an hour. And I mean, that's like a whole different league. We've had Steve Wozniak a couple of years ago, one of the founder of Apple. That was a pretty epic experience, but he a bit more of a niche. And now we're saying, hey, okay, it's global. We want what are common themes that people attract to: sports and music
and movies. He has movie theaters, and so I think he has broad appeal, and I was excited to see him being added to the docket. And that has nothing to do with the fact that I'm from mid-Michigan as well. So that has nothing to do with that, and I'm down the street from Michigan State. That has nothing to do with that.
No. Well, I'm Dutch. I have less of an American sort of essence to it, but I talk to many people, and they all know him, right? So sometimes you have it like you have a big name in your mind, and you mention it, and then you have 4 or 5 people, and always there's one that's like, who's that? It's not happened in this case. So yes, it's a big leap forward, but I think it's a validation, I think, of the community and their commitment and wanting to
because last year's event was an excellent event, but it certainly wasn't the full-blown Dscoop Edge event. And I think this one, if you look at the program, is going to be that.
Correct. Yep. No, and we are happy with the program, right? So as I said, we have 40 plus breakout sessions. HP will running a make it real track for operations and being very hands-on. Magic Johnson is one of the keynotes. The other keynote I'm also quite excited about is a gentleman whose name doesn't necessarily ring a bell by itself. His name is Mark Schulman, but he's the drummer for Pink, Foreigner, and a few others. And that certainly rings a bell with many people, and I think that will be a fantastic opening on Sunday.
So one of the reasons why people really enjoy Dscoop is the celebration party. This is something that kind of caps off the Dscoop experience. Can you talk a little bit about that and why people, if they are planning to go to Dscoop, you should stay the extra night and go to the celebration party? What is the plan for this year?
So the plan for this year is that usually the Dscoop conference happens at a resort, at the Gaylord Resorts, because it's quite a favorite for our community, because it means we sort of take over the resort, and it means wherever you go, if you go to an outlet to get a coffee, or you're in an elevator or in the gym, you will bump into someone that is from your same community, and it really builds those friendships. Now we're in downtown St. Louis, and it's all very compact. And we wanted, again, to give something extra to the community. And we're taking the party, the dinner and party, on the Tuesday night offsite to a venue called the City Museum. It's a short walk, but it's a fantastic factory. It used to be a shoe factory, so it's 8 floors, and they have completely built an experience inside that building with all repurposed materials. You'll see factory things. There's a part of a ceiling that has like a cloth hanging from the ceilings, which is made from old parachutes. There's a whole maze with caves and stuff that they've made with building remnants. There's a slide that goes from the 8th down. There's a skate park. I think the largest pencil, which is an official Guinness record, is in the building as well. And we'll take over the building, and it will have live music, DJ, food and drinks. And again, it's part of that social experience, having people, meet each other, talk to each other in a nice, social, comfortable environment. But yes, I mean, over the years, there are some really good stories about the parties, and we do it at almost sort of the last day of the event. So it's also a celebration of what's happened the days before and all the hard work that everyone put in. Because I think that's an important element as well. Is although I work with a team of 18, although we sort of do the work, but we are guided and led by our volunteer members that dedicate their time and energy and give us ideas and want to make this the best experience possible for our members. And I think that makes it so powerful, because we can do lots of good things, but it has the spirit and the soul of our members that they put in. And I think
even with a staff of nearly 20 people, putting together an event like that couldn't happen without a lot of dedication from your membership and leadership.
Yes, and also from all our members, right? So we have our printing supplier members, we have our partners, the sponsors that make a substantial contribution, but also in time and energy. Like we have an advisory council, they advise us, and an HP is an executive sponsor, is equally important to help make that happen. So sort of our team balloons as we prepare for this event with lots of people that we don't necessarily directly see, but they're working on the event itself.
So if someone were interested in getting information, if they have never attended a Dscoop Edge before, and we certainly encourage them to, where can they go for more information? Because there's several ways you can do it, correct? There's almost like a package deal for teams, right?
Correct. Yes. So yes, all the information is on our website, dscoopedge.com, and there are individual registrations, but there's also group registrations. So if you want to bring multiple from your company, we have a pretty sweet deal that is buy 3 get 4, which gives you a nice discount on the registration. So we do encourage teams to do that, and making sure that everyone understands, as you said before, right? So basically, you from start to finish, you're more or less looked after. You don't have to go anywhere else. That is all covered in the registration. So it's not just going to an event, paying an access fee, and then paying for everything else around it. The registration fee covers not your stay or your travel, right? So accommodation and travel is on your own. However, from Sunday afternoon to Wednesday lunchtime, you are looked after with social events, the party, the education, the lunch breaks during the event, the coffee breaks, the tea breaks. Everything is part of that fee. So it's as I said, it's almost like an all-inclusive resort. You pay once, you get the wristband, or in this case, you get a badge, and that means you have freedom to roam the entire event, the showcase with all the exhibitors, all the sessions. They're free for you to attend, and then the keynotes with Magic Johnson and Mark Shaw.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time and for sharing the vision and the details of Dscoop. That once again is dscoopedge.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you in St. Louis in May. And thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Gary, for having me. And I look forward again to another successful year of collaboration.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.